Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. If you're like me and suffer from insomnia, you know what? That's not fun. I tried everything. I couldn't get a good night's sleep. And this is neither drug nor alcohol induced. That's right. It is MyPillow. Mike Lindell invented it, and he fitted me for my first MyPillow, and it's changed my life. I fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and the good news, you can too. Just go to MyPillow.com, promo code Sean, and take advantage of one of Mike Lindell's best offers, his special 4-pack. You get 50% off 2 MyPillow premium pillows, 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, MyPillow's made in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, no risk to you, and a 10-year warranty. You don't want to spend more sleepless nights on a pillow tossing and turning that's not working for you. Just go to MyPillow.com right now, use the promo code Sean, and you get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack. You get 2 MyPillow premium pillows, 2 Go Anywhere pillows, 50% off, and you'll start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep you've been craving and deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Sean.
The body of a young Hispanic female was found in the 9900 block of Sharps Crest, Houston, Texas. The victim appeared to have been executed and left in the street. We were able to identify a group of MS-13 gang members who we believe are responsible.
Police in New York saying the suspect in a series of brutal crimes is a gang member and illegal immigrant who's been deported 4 times. Tommy Vladim Alvarado Ventura is accused of stabbing 2 women and sexually assaulting a 2-year-old girl.
And they used 2 females to lure 4 young males to the park, and they were brutally bludgeoned and stabbed and hacked up with machetes. It's gruesome. I mean, it's not like you're shooting somebody from 100 feet away. You're getting blood splattered onto you.
The killers slashed Perez's neck. Today, Alexandria police announced 3 suspects, an adult male, 17-year-old boy, and 16-year-old girl. Investigators say those men are MS-13 gang members.
Yesterday, 3 subjects responsible for 2 attempted murders with bladed weapons and in one incident firing a handgun at the victim were taken into custody last night. All purport to be MS-13 members.
19-year-old Miguel Lopez Abrega was charged with first-degree murder of the victim. As the press release says, the victim had been stabbed over 100 times.
Investigators say the Queens man is a member of MS-13 and is responsible for killing a Valley Stream teen earlier this year. According to court documents, Julio Cesar Gonzalez Espance's brutally beaten body was discovered inside the Massapequa Preserve in late March.
Thank you. Why would there be an MS-13 gang member I know about? If they don't reach a certain threshold, I cannot tell ICE about it.
No. We have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals.
So we saw what happened, all the brouhaha. So the president says, he's asked a question about MS-13 gang members. The numbers of brutal, violent crimes committed by members of this gang have been so well chronicled and innocent Americans dying. Now, he was asked specifically about them, and he said that they're animals. And then the media said, Donald Trump called all immigrants animals, when he specifically did not, which is so dishonest, but yet predictable. The reality is I've been down to that border 12 times. I've been out on horseback, all-terrain vehicle, boats, helicopters, drug warehouses, tunnels. I've seen it all from the Rio Grande to San Diego and every spot in between. And I'm telling you, I was there when a gang member was arrested. I didn't know at the moment, didn't know at the time, but we found out later. They informed our show, yes, this is a known gang member. Now, this is so important for the safety, the security of every American in every city. And on top of that, look at the opioid problem and the abuse problem. Go watch the show Trade on Showtime or any of these Netflix series. One's called Drugs. And you're going to learn about opioids and where they come from and how they're made and how they're literally our borders being so porous, they pour across the border to target small towns and big cities all across the United States. Anyway, joining us, she happens to be in, what are you doing in town? Congresswoman Diane Black of Tennessee is with us. By the way, a Republican candidate for governor. And this is an issue you have been against catch and release. You support the president on building the wall.
Absolutely.
Where are the rest of these so-called Republicans?
Well, we want to build the wall, and the president wants to build the wall, and yet Congress has not funded it. And look, this is nothing new. We've been wanting to build this wall for the past 3 presidents, and yet we don't have the funding. And so my bill that I've actually put into the hopper is that we allow the American people who want to see the wall built to be a part of that. And it develops a dedicated fund so that you can send your money to build the wall. Let's get it done.
You know, the only problem I have with it is this. Okay, I live in New York, all right? Well, now my taxes are a little lower, except I don't get to deduct the New York state tax. So I'm paying about, when you add state, federal, local, city tax, and you have a state income tax in New York of nearly 10%, city tax in New York of 4%, on top of what was 40%, federal income tax. So when I pay all my taxes, it's 63 cents out of every dollar. And I have to pay because my name is Sean Hannity, and there are a lot of deep state actors that hate me. And so they pull my file as often as they can, unfortunately. So my point is to you, I don't want to have to pay. The money's there. We have enough money to pay for the wall and protect our citizenry. Why can't we just pay it? Why can't the Congress, the Republicans, fund it?
Well, sir, first of all, let me invite you to Tennessee, where we don't have a state income tax, and you don't have all those taxes in each one of these municipalities.
How long have you been in New York? How many days?
I've only been here 2.
Okay, and you see the dilapidated infrastructure.
Yes, I do.
And if it was in Tennessee, your phones would be ringing off the hook. What you see every single second in New York, right?
That's right.
Okay, how is it possible you have no state income tax and you have far better infrastructure? Texas, same story. Florida, same story than New York or Illinois or New Jersey or California?
Because people know that. They want to come to Tennessee, and they want to be a part of what we have there in Tennessee, where we balance our budget by the Constitution, and we make sure that we use our money in a way that helps the people's lives and continues to invite more and more people to come. That's why we invite you there. But you ask a very good question. Why are we not funding the wall? I ask that same question. Why are we not funding the wall? And the House of Representatives, we do measures that fund the wall, and then it gets to the Senate, and I hate to always use that excuse, but it's not an excuse. It's a reality that we cannot get the Senate to do the right thing. And so the American people say, look, let me have an opportunity. I'm willing to send some of my dollars. But they can do that now. They can send money to the federal government and say, here's my money to help to build the wall. However, it's not a dedicated fund. And that's really what this bill does, is it sets up a dedicated fund so that when that money comes into the Treasury, it will actually be used to build the wall and what the president wants to do, and that is just to protect us from the people like MS-13.
Behind the closed doors, and you're there, and I know you're going to be honest with me, there are Republicans that don't like Donald Trump. But meanwhile, if any of them win, it'll be in spite of themselves after 7 years of promising to repeal and replace Obamacare and a lot of other things, because this president, obviously, everything he says he's going to do, he did. Jerusalem's the capital. He's out of this horrific Iranian deal. We see what's happening with Little Rocket Man. We have 14 states with record low unemployment for Hispanics, for African Americans, for women in the workplace. And on top of all that, the biggest tax cut in history. So he's doing his job. Where's Congress?
Well, fortunately, we have a president who's doing what he said. And we've too frequently had presidents to come into office and not do what they said. And again, I don't want to sound weenie about this and say it is the Senate, but
you obviously are not from New York if you're saying, I don't want to be weenie about this.
We do our work in the House. And
I love people.
Get the Senate to do their work. No. Sean, if we had the Senate without that filibuster, just think about all the things, not just this year, but what we could have even done during the time of Obama.
400 bills that have been sent from the House to the Senate, including Kate's Law.
That's right.
Who do you want for Speaker after Ryan?
I think that'll be left up to the members of what they decide.
Who would you pick if you had to pick now?
I would not pick right now.
I'd pick Jim Jordan.
I would. What I want to do is I want to hear what they're going to do. I want to hear what their thoughts are of how we can come together.
You know enough about McCarthy and Steve Scalise, and I like them both, but I would pick Jordan, and I don't think the Freedom Caucus should give in at all to any speaker unless they get a seat at the table.
Well, and look, I don't disagree with you that we need to have all voices at the table. And as the budget chair, I did just that.
Yeah.
I had members from New York, which were the more moderate, all the way to members like Sanford that was part of the Freedom Caucus. And that's what I did as the budget chair, is to get people all to come together around the table.
How did the omnibus bill get so out of control?
Oh, my gosh. Well, of course, I didn't vote for the omnibus bill for several reasons.
I know you didn't.
Yes, it spent too much money. And part of that is because, again, you have to deal with the Senate and try to get the Senate to come along so you can get something done. And as a result of doing that, Schumer gets more than what we want. It's crazy. It's a crazy atmosphere.
Well, the president has. We had the budget director Mulvaney on the program, and I guess we're literally peeling back at least some of it. What, about $15 billion?
Yeah, about $15 billion. And what they're doing is they're actually just taking what was what we would normally have.
When you come in studio, you have to turn your phone off.
I apologize for that.
It's all right, no worries.
What we're doing is we're taking what has been appropriated, and when you appropriate dollars, those dollars sit in those funds. And I always tell people it's kind of like when I used to do envelopes, and I want to buy a new refrigerator, let's say, and I put my money in the envelope for a new refrigerator, and the refrigerator was $100 less than what I anticipated. I don't leave that $100 in the envelope. I take that money and I bring it back into the Treasury, which is what we should be doing here.
You know, my first professional radio job was 90 miles south of Nashville in Athens, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama.
Right on the border there.
Right. It's literally, what is it, Highway 65, right?
That's right.
Right off Highway 65.
Come on back.
And I honestly have always loved Music City. I'm a big country music fan, which is rare as a person that's stuck here in New York paying these high taxes. What are Marsha Blackburn's chances? Because I'm a big fan of hers.
I think that Marsha will be okay at the end of the day. People will realize in our state, because we are a red state, they'll realize that if you send anyone other than a Republican.
Why do you say at the end of the day? Because it looks like a close race, or?
Because I think it will be a tough race. I think that that the previous mayor and governor of the state of Tennessee is respected because he was more moderate. He did work with both the moderates and the conservatives. And so I think that especially when you leave office and after you've been out of office for a while, your reputation tends to be better than you were when you were in office, and that's kind of the way it is because he's been out of office now for.
Yeah, people forget. It's like Clinton is loved, and I'm like, all right, let me remind you how bad he was.
Exactly.
What about, as I look at the race for the Senate, and I think it's a very important, obviously, to hold for us, but I was never a fan of Bob Corker either.
Yeah.
Bob Corker turned out to be a big disappointment.
Well, he has disappointed a number of people, including myself in Tennessee, and the fact that even now he is not with the person that could really make the difference there. And if we don't have a Republican going in there, even though Bredesen sells himself as being so conservative, you know what he's going to do. As soon as Schumer tells him this is what I need you to do, that's what he's going to do. We cannot lose that seat.
It's sort of like you see Joe Manchin and people like Heidi Heitkamp and Claire McCaskill.
Right.
You know, here it's an election year and they want to hold on to their jobs. Sure, we'll pass Gina Haspel and we'll vote for Mike Pompeo. They never, ever in a million years would have done it otherwise.
And
ever.
they have 6 years once they're elected to be able to do whatever. People, they think, well, we'll do that now, get elected. And then as soon as they come back, they'll be the old person again, and they'll wait until 7 years goes by and they'll try to change their color again. So you cannot trust a Democrat when they say, oh, we'll do this and we'll do that. We know what they're going to do. They're going to listen to Schumer.
All right, it's good to see you. Good luck in everything that you're doing. Congresswoman Diane Black of Tennessee. Congresswoman, we always appreciate your hard work. You should have been a member of the Freedom Caucus. Why didn't you join? You are conservative.
Well, I actually looked at the Freedom Caucus. This is the reason why I didn't join, to be very frank with you.
Because Louis Gohmert talks too much.
No. Because
he's one of my best friends.
They take a vote, and they say if 80% of the people in their caucus vote that way, that everybody should. And my voting card belongs to the people of the 6th Congressional District of Tennessee.
All right, that's a good counter argument. But I would have joined anyway. We appreciate you. Good luck in your race for governor, and thank you for stopping by. Good to see you in New York.
It's great.
They don't say that, by the way. I was shocked when I moved down south. Come back and see us.
Y'all come.
I'd like look around and I'm saying, what are you talking about? I'm from New York. What you mean that? Really? Anyway, good to see you. Thank you. All right, let's hit our busy phones here as we continue. Let's say hi to Bill is in New Jersey, the all-new AM 710 WOR, the talk of New York, New Jersey, Long Island. What's going on, Bill? How are you? Glad you called, sir.
Hey, thank you very much for taking my call. Thank you very much for the work that you are doing. The reason I called in is I'm a retired law enforcement. I authored, I was the affiant of 2 wiretap investigations, worked 4 wiretap investigations. And looking at, there's a lot of things that just scratch my head over, but one, the number of people, number of officers, investigators that would have to be involved, and the instructions given to the team. So when when the order's issued, you get everybody together and you sit down with that team of investigators and you explain, here's the target, here's the crime, here's what we're looking for, and this very strict minimization issue orders that go along with a wiretap investigation. And what I'm curious about is the inventory return, what was given back to the court. Every time you go in for, when they wanted a continuance, you have to provide an inventory of the number of calls, who you listened in on, what information, and the reason for the continuance.
Yep. Well, I got to tell you something, and this is really, really important. If we have FISA courts lied to and FBI informants in campaigns and election years, we've lost the country. And it's not a joke. This is as serious as anything we've ever talked about.
With only a kite, a house key, and wet hemp string, Benjamin Franklin captured lightning in a bottle. Over 260 years later, with a little resourcefulness, ingenuity, and grit, we're not only capturing energy from the sun and wind, we're storing it, ensuring Americans have the energy they need whenever they need it. Learn more about the nation's leader in energy storage at nexteraenergy.com.
News Roundup Information Overload Hour. Glad you are with us. The Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN is our number. Yeah, not only one spy in the campaign. Well, we might have had as many as two, and God knows if there's any more. And the story just keeps getting more corrupt day by day, hour by hour. You can't even believe it. There was a filing today as it relates to, that all-important Russia-related news, collusion news of Paul Manafort. You know, the tax fraud case that they dug up from 2005, as Judge Ellis III has said, was to put the screws to Paul Manafort so he sings, but he may also start composing. Anyway, Paul Manafort, in a court filing, is accusing Robert Mueller's pit bull, guy we've talked about a lot on this program, Andrew Weissman, of leaking information to journalists. And Manafort alleged in court papers that were filed last night, that lead prosecutor, the pit bull of Robert Mueller, was in fact in touch with the AP, and AP reporters shared details of Mueller's investigation into Manafort with them. The time of the leaks, Manafort had not yet been indicted. The former Trump campaign chairman claimed in the filing that Weissman's alleged briefing with reporters amounted to an unauthorized illegal leak of classified information. And not only is leaking classified information a felony, but it was also apparently intended to create a false narrative, public narrative, that Manafort was colluding with Russian intelligence officials during the Trump presidential campaign. Anyway, joining us now to weigh in on this, we welcome back investigative reporter Sarah Carter, Fox News contributor, also David Schoen, criminal and civil liberties attorney. Sarah, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but some of your reporting was mentioned. You were mentioned specifically in this filing, and not in a bad way, just to let everybody know. But the fact that you're doing your job and you are seeking sources of individuals, I don't know if you have any comment at all. If you do, fine. If you don't, that's fine, too.
Well, I stand by the story, and of course the story has been taken on by Paul Manafort's attorneys, and in this case, there's right now, because it is ongoing, I'm probably not going to talk about the case directly, but I can talk about, the story itself. I mean, and this was quite a while ago, Sean, where Andrew Weissman had met with reporters from the Associated Press. The FBI was there as well. This is before he joined the Mueller team, and that's what the story was about. And the focus of the story was very factually based. I had a number of sources in that story, wrote all sides of the story, and presented it to the public. And then, of course, now it's becoming a part of a bigger picture of what we've been seeing recently in other stories, particularly the New York Times and the Washington Post, where it appears that a lot of information that could only be, only be possessed by people within the Department of Justice and within the FBI has leaked. And it appears that this is what this is all about.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of important things here, David. Look, I don't know what this means, but there's a predicament here, I think, for any of us that use sources. And because the media is so lazy, I don't think any of them pick up a phone. I'm on the phone all day. I'm talking to people's sources as often as I can. And I'm never going to give up my sources, ever, to anybody. And if they want to put me in jail because I'm not going to give any prosecutor or any grand jury a source, then that's going to be Hannity held hostage day 101.
Yeah, look, it's a fundamental tenet of our system. If you weren't using sources, no one ought to want to hear your stories. People want to hear your stories and Sarah's articles because they are sourced, period. Those sources would not come forward for attribution in most cases, and so you have to keep their identity private. But what's happening is here, the media game is being turned on its head by the New York Times and the Washington Post, being all too willing tools for people like Weissman, Comey, et cetera, so that they're really becoming tools of disinformation, propaganda, and in this case, I believe preemption, because they know now that the evidence is going to come out, and so they put a spin on what that evidence could have been. So in other words, they're not denying anymore there were spies in the Trump administration camp, spy or spies, but they're saying now, well, but we don't believe it was for political purposes. We can't believe anything that we're hearing since all of it has been concealed before or redacted. And so this is not just take it on faith anymore. This is why Congress has its obligation to get these documents. And by the way, the president is entirely right to order these documents to be turned over to Congress. This is his Article 2 agency. He demands that justice be done and that there be transparency.
Well, there's got to be transparency here. You know, let's go to the whole issue. It fundamentally comes down to a very, very simple story about abuse of power by the highest people in the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the intelligence community, Sarah. It comes down to laws broken by one candidate, a rigged investigation for that candidate, their favored candidate, and then literally turning the tools of intelligence on the opposition party candidate, and it includes spies within the campaign. Really? When does this ever happen in American history? And then lying to FISA court judges repeatedly with false information put together, Russian propaganda and lies now debunked and paid for by Hillary, funneled through a law firm to an op research group, hiring a foreign national. I can't make this up in a spy novel, but it's all true. Every bit of it's true.
And so public, right? Because in a spy novel, everything happens cloak and dagger, behind the scenes, and then it's revealed later, years after it's exposed. This is such a public issue, and we've seen so much disinformation leaked by former members of the Obama administration, people who've been called out now in investigations, like James Clapper and others. And there's so many inconsistencies in their stories that Congress has had to call them back, try to re-clarify. Sean, this is the reason why Congress is fighting, especially the House Intelligence Committee right now and the Senate Judiciary Committee, for all the documents pertaining to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant that was taken out on Carter Page. You had 4 warrants on Carter Page. All those were renewed every 90 days. The last warrant on Carter Page was signed off by none other than Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. And by that point, remember, all of the evidence is cumulative. So they had the dossier. We know that now. That was the bulk of information in the first FISA warrant. But then they had to get more information in order to continue their investigation. They couldn't just rely on the dossier, which they, by the way, already knew was filled with unverified facts and salacious allegations that they had never proven, but that they used and they never told the courts. Now they had to gather more and more information to continue their surveillance of Carter Page. And that went all the way into 7 months into the Trump administration. Now they don't want to give up those documents. They have been fighting back and forth. It's had to go to the White House, to the president. We saw the meeting yesterday.
But Sarah, we had the meeting yesterday. Now they're talking, we're gonna allow some access to it. I don't buy any of it. Because
I don't buy any of it either, Sean. I don't buy any of it either.
Let me add one thing. Yeah, I'm going to tell you something. going through the inspector general route is a way to delay and probably acid wash away whatever evidence they possibly can. We need an immediate investigation and immediate unredacted versions. The president needs to call for it himself. He has the authority.
Absolutely. He needs to call on the DOJ to turn over those documents unredacted. Now, if there are names of particular assets utilized by the intelligence community, then okay. I've talked to people all across the board, both, across Capitol Hill. They can redact those names, but they need the full access to the documents, unredacted for the most part, to see the process by which the Department of Justice and the FBI went to the Fisk court and got this secret court to approve all of this surveillance on Carter Page. Because remember, even though Carter Page was never really a part of the transition team, he never was. He was a volunteer on the campaign. He served a very little time, but it's the access, right? So once they access Carter Page and do surveillance on Carter Page, then they can surveil the people that Carter Page is speaking to. And then those people become trapped in this dragnet. And if they can go reach out to them, then they can basically listen in to the people that they're talking to. So how far did this dragnet go? And they have never shown any evidence whatsoever that the Trump campaign was conspiring or anything with the Russians. So what was the evidence that they used? Apparently there was none.
I think that's so well said. David Schoen, I'm only concerned here is that I think desperate people do desperate things. And now that all of this has now come to light, and, you have simultaneous things happening here. The Russia-Trump collusion narrative is dead. Even, the Stormy Daniels story is dead. The American people don't care. The president is on a roll with the economy and foreign policy. That's adding to a lot of this. And then, of course, I think people now are beginning to understand deeply this attempt at a soft coup to undermine a candidate and then a duly elected president, to use the powerful tools of intelligence to do it, to put spies in a campaign, lying to courts at the highest level possible, and thinking they could all get away with it, putting the fix in on investigations where our justice system is now a two-tiered system. One for the Clintons and one for everybody else. One for liberals, one for conservatives.
Yeah, look, we've effectively taken away the power at the ballot box because you really, I don't mean to overstate this, you really have a group of people like Mueller and his team who have a particular agenda running the country, in effect, because they've paralyzed everything else. What we have to see now, you've identified the problem. What we have to see now is a willingness in the executive branch to say enough is enough. Clear these people out. Clear out Rod Rosenstein also, and start from scratch on this stuff to get the country back about its business. By the way, the other layer to this thing, it was not mentioned before, but I know you well know about it, is the specter of a group of 3 or 4 people in the Justice Department deciding something like infiltrating a presidential campaign, and they knew better, and they didn't want to discuss it with higher ups. Think about that cabal. That's one of the scariest specters we've ever seen.
And Sarah, your point about these FISA warrants, I think when we get to Rod Rosenstein's, this is the 4th one, and the bulk of the information that was presented to the court was the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for, put together by a foreign national, a Russian dossier full of lies. Now, if we see that, and that, in fact, they didn't do their job at verification, corroboration, and they didn't tell the FISA judge, they lied by omission, and didn't tell the judge that Hillary paid for it, yet they knew that, then we've got ourselves, this makes Watergate look like stealing a Snickers bar from a candy store.
Absolutely. I mean, they're under obligation to tell the whole truth, to expose all that to the FISA courts. Because remember, and I think David can explain this in more detail on the legal side of things, there's nobody there at the Fisk court, at this secret court, to defend Carter Page. So there's no one there to defend him. There's no one there to defend any American against this. And remember, they opened a counterintelligence investigation against, candidate Trump and then President-elect Trump, and then it went on through President Trump's administration, 7 months. So they opened this investigation, right, into Carter Page, into the Trump campaign. There's no one there to defend Carter Page. It's a counterintelligence investigation that appears based on all the facts, Sean, every bit of fact that is coming out, that it was either a setup or that they were cavorting in order to affect at least the election, and if they couldn't do that, to affect his presidency. And I don't understand how Rod Rosenstein, who signed off on the last FISA warrant, is in charge of this.
Let me tell you something. A massive conflict. And listen, we're talking about an attempted coup here by a very small number of people with enormous power and enormous power with tools of intelligence and abusing that power. Stay right there. More with Sarah Carter and David Schoen when we get back. And House conservatives now, they are introducing legislation to appoint a second special counsel, a much better idea than the IG because, of course, they'd have the power to bring charges. All right, final moments, Sarah Carter and David Schoen. And then, of course, Memorial Day is coming up this weekend. And we're just going to take a moment. How about we honor those people that protect our freedoms every day? We've got House conservatives now, Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows explaining that they're introducing legislation to appoint a second special counsel. David Schoen, I think that's a much better answer than giving it to somebody. Maybe he's honorable. We'll find out. Michael Horowitz, but he doesn't have the power to do anything other than a criminal referral.
Right. Well, you've identified that weakness a couple of times, and you're 100% right. Michael Horowitz is an honest guy, and we've learned from his earlier investigation that he can call it straight. But there are no teeth in that thing. We don't know even what's happened to the investigations that have been referred to 2 other prosecutors. So a special counsel in this case, while we dread it because they seem to be never-ending and costing us millions of dollars, may be the only answer. I want to make one other point, though. We've talked before about the media, and the media clearly is misleading the public here about what's happening when they accuse Trump of being heavy-handed by telling them to disclose documents. Where are the civil libertarians? Where are my brothers and sisters at the bar in this case? It is an American value to have full disclosure. Civil libertarians always have called for disclosure, and now they're objecting to that. Now they're objecting to the president saying, disclose these documents. We should only have redacted documents. We don't want the information as the American people. If this were turned around, and this were the Obama presidency, that these kinds of tactics or campaign had been used against, we'd be screaming from the hilltops, McCarthyism, heavy-handedness, un-American, etc. But it's okay because anti-Trumpism seems to trump, so to speak, every other value.
David Schoen, thank you. And Sarah Carter, amazing work. And I know you've been working tirelessly, both of you, to help the American people understand just how bad this has been. But we're making so much progress thanks to both of you. 800-941-SEAN.
And he said, please call all the family and have everyone to pray that I can bring all of my soldiers home. He didn't care if he lost his life. Hi, my name is Anna Lawrence. This is my husband, Tracy Lawrence, and we're the proud parents of Lieutenant Clint Lawrence, who is currently serving a 20-year sentence at Fort Leavenworth Prison. President Obama, I would like to ask you, please, 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 give my son a full pardon and send my boy home. President Obama, to date, you have shown mercy and granted presidential pardons and commutations to over 600 Americans who made poor choices and ended up in prison. With all due respect, sir, my son didn't make a poor choice. The only choice that he made was to serve his country. Mr. President, you've acknowledged that those that you have helped have taken full responsibility for their actions, and they deserve a second chance. Our son, too, deserves that second chance. Mr. President, if I could speak to your heart for a moment, parent to parent, I would like to tell you a little bit about who my son is. My son is a very, very outstanding young man that loves his country and willingly and proudly chose to serve his country. The day of his court-martial, he was able to walk from the courthouse with his shoulders squared back and his head raised high, leaning on the fact and his strength coming from the fact of knowing that he did what he had to do and he left none of his soldiers behind. To him, that meant more than anything. Sir, I asked you to please bring my son home. He is an outstanding young man that fought willingly for his country. My son made the decision. I'm very proud for the decision he made, because today I still have my son instead of a folded flag. Actions that you have taken have shown me that you believe in second chances. And that's all I'm asking you for, is a second chance for my son. Thank you.
All right, 24 now till the top of the hour. That was the mother of Clint Lawrence. If you remember back in 2013, we have covered this story a lot, just like the Christian Saucier story. Remember, Christian Saucier took 6 pictures inside a submarine, and lo and behold, he got a year in jail. Oh, for mishandling classified materials. Hillary, she got away with murder and obvious obstruction of justice on top of it. She did the same thing on a much deeper level. It's unbelievable. We have a 2-tier justice system in America. Anyway, Clint Lawrence, he was literally convicted, this guy, of murder, sentenced to 20 years in prison. He took over a platoon in Afghanistan in July of 2012. And just prior to his arrival, there had been a number of people in this platoon killed by middle-aged men on motorcycles speeding towards their patrol. That same MO happened again, and he had to make a decision. Do I protect my men? Do I defend my men? I know what had happened just about 2 weeks earlier. Anyway, the prosecution was claiming the Afghani men were innocent civilians, but we now know there's new evidence that has emerged in this case that prove the so-called middle-aged men were biometrically linked to IED events and common grid coordinates and linked to other IED markers and linked with American paratroopers having been killed in action. And the new information about Clint's case regarding the Army's 2012 hearing in August report in which the Army admits that the enemy was scouting Clint's platoon that day. They never turned over that report. This man needs a pardon. Anyway, we have Memorial Day coming up, and Congressman Duncan Hunter, who's been from the very get-go, fighting hard on this case, and still this poor man has not gotten the justice he deserves, and he's innocent. How are you, sir?
Sean, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And, the big thing that strikes me about this, I hate to draw comparisons with the Mueller investigation on Trump, but what it looks like, these military lawyers and DOJ lawyers, they're not looking for justice. They don't care about justice. They don't care about doing the right thing. They care about convictions. And they care about convictions, even if that means withholding evidence.
But that's not the military, I know.
Those types of things.
I mean, I was talking to Marcus Luttrell yesterday, and we were just texting back and forth, and everybody knows Lone Survivor. We've all seen the movie, and he was it, and that was real life for him. And he lost, these are brothers to him. These guys, they all have each other's back. With all the evidence in this case that shows that the people that were charging at them were, in fact, people that could, blow up individual members of their platoon, how were we sitting in the comfort and peace of our towns and our cities in the United States? How are we to make that decision when it's not our ass on the line at that minute?
Well, 2 things, Sean. Number one, it's the military, but they're military lawyers. These guys aren't infantry, Marines, or soldiers, or artillery Marines or soldiers. They're lawyers. And they have the same goal as Department of Justice guys do, and that's to get convictions, number one. Number two, what you said is exactly right. You have the people that are sitting back here in their nice air-conditioned Pentagon, second-guessing what the men do on the ground overseas, treating them like cops, cops shouldn't even be treated the way that Clint Lawrence does when the evidence came out that he, in fact, killed bad guys. Hey, and there's a new piece of evidence which hopefully will help us get this case reviewed again. If the president won't simply pardon Clint, we just got a piece of evidence in the last week. Okay, we uncovered this. Clint's lawyer uncovered this. They killed another guy after that incident. After they killed the bad guys on the motorcycles, they continued their patrol looking for insurgent ambushes, which is what they were told to do, and they killed another enemy. No one ever told the lawyer that. Nobody. The court had no idea that they had killed another enemy combatant on a totally separate engagement after they had killed the guys on the motorcycle. So you have things like this that the Army intentionally is keeping from the defense lawyer and from the jury. You know, you see this stuff when the Army screws up, that they just want to cover it and cover it and cover it up. So like Pat Tillman, the great football player, died from
friendly fire.
The Army could not bring itself to admit that. It took them years to finally come out and say, yeah, he was killed by friendly fire, instead of just doing the right thing in the first place. And I think the Army's stuck now, because one thing you'll never see a military service do ever, even God bless the Marine Corps, you'll never see the service admit that they're wrong, ever, period.
You know, and by the way, joining us now is Captain Roger Hill, author of Dog Company, a true story of American soldiers abandoned by their high command. Well, it sounds like exactly what happened in the case of Clint Lawrence. How are you, Rod?
Hey,
How are you, Captain?
Hey,
what's going on?
You doing all right?
I'm good, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, so what a tragedy. Clint did exactly as he was told. He was trained. Actually, he was trained for the circumstances that he was confronted with, and he acted, and his platoon acted exactly as they were trained, and they're being punished for it. Now, after the fact, we have found out that the guys that they actually came across and killed were bad guys. My argument is this, though. Even if we had found out that those guys that they killed were innocent, or we were unable to prove that they had ties to the enemy or ties to bomb makers in this case, because of the fog of war and the type of combat that we fight in, the type of fighting that I've seen, the type of fighting that Duncan Hunter has seen, we have to give the benefit of the doubt to our troops on the ground, regardless of how these situations end up, regardless of the collateral that's created. But in this case,
Captain Hill, in this particular case, that very same platoon, was it 2 weeks earlier, a week earlier? This is just before Clint Lawrence took over the platoon. The very same MO happened. They were attacked by these. Well, yeah, go ahead.
That's why he was there. This is Duncan again. That's why Clint was there, is because the lieutenant was killed. I mean, they had their platoon commander killed by military-age males on motorcycles. So Clint Lawrence comes there to relieve the lieutenant who was killed, and then he sees the exact same thing. What would you do? What would anybody in their right mind who's in a combat situation and sees the exact same scenario unfolding that killed his predecessor? You're going to kill those sons of guns, and he did the exact right thing.
How do we judge in the comfort of our homes? I mean, it is outrageous that we literally are putting handcuffs, and then, of course, these insane Obama rules of engagement. I just want to make sure that this gets the attention it deserves. Has anybody gotten this to President Trump yet?
Yeah. Hey, Sean, this is Duncan again. I mean, I've written them letters. You've talked to him and told him this by name, and that was fantastic of you to do. President Trump probably has a bunch of military lawyers whispering in his ear saying, "Oh, you can't overturn military justice," blah blah blah. We're being faced right now with the same bureaucracy that has one of Trump's ears. We need to get the other ear and make sure we make a better case and get Clint out of jail. I mean, it's that simple.
I've got to listen. I brought it up in an interview. I've got to ask him again, because and he did respond in the case of Christian Saucier. Just to show that this is not an isolated incident, Captain Hill, you wrote a whole book on the story about American soldiers being abandoned. What happened in your case?
Well, we found out that we had spies operating on our base, and then in and around a lot of our patrols. In fact, one of those spies was my interpreter. When we ran what I call a sting operation, basically we collected on these guys for a while, found incontrovertible evidence against them, turned that over to our higher command. They refused to pick these spies up for one reason or another. And when I was faced with the thought of releasing them, which was according to our protocol at that time, our rules of engagement at that time, or confronting them myself and trying to get whatever intel I could out of them, I took matters in my own hands. I interrogated them myself, scared them into talking, and almost ended up in prison for it. And so in a lot of ways, the situation isn't a
So you got a confession out of spies that puts everybody's life at risk, and you get in trouble for that.
Yeah. I was faced.
Why would anybody listening to this who has maybe a young kid, 17, 18, 20 years old, wants to go in the military, why after listening to this would anyone want to go? I mean, it's bad. I mean, if you're willing to already put your life on the line, Now you're being told that it happens repeatedly, that the government's going to abandon you if you have to make a split-second decision to defend those brothers that you're out fighting with.
Yeah, absolutely. All things considered, I don't know that I could tell my own children to consider the military. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Well, I was very clear on the air. If Barack Obama's president, I don't want anybody I know. Wait till there's a new president. Now I have a much more open mind to it, because I know Donald Trump, if he fights, he's going to fight to win it.
Yeah, but again, to Duncan's point, has he gone back and reconciled any of these past grievances? I mean, to me, that would be a true testament to his character. He has the power to do so. Why hasn't he acted?
Well, I'm not making excuses for anybody, but I will say that he did in the case of Christian Saucier. That should give us all hope. Number one. Number two, you see what this president has lived under for the last, since he's become president, and the attacks. And yet he's still making tremendous progress for the country on the economic front, foreign policy. But I am convinced that if these facts are given to him, and there are a lot of lawyers around a president, which is a pain in everybody's neck, but I am convinced that if he got the facts of this case, that he would do the right thing. Duncan Hunter.
This is Duncan again. We sent him the letter that explained all of these things with the new evidence that Clint's lawyer got last week.
He didn't get the letter. You need to go in the White House in the Oval Office and tell him.
And put it in his hands. Yeah, well, here's what we're going to do, though. We're going to try to get the Army to look at this again and save themselves this embarrassment. Because this has happened with we've saved a number of guys. Charles Martland, the guy that beat up the child pedophile in Afghanistan. Army tried to kick him out. Matt Goldstein, Silver Star Green Beret that killed some bad guys that had killed Marines. The Army tried to kick him out. I probably have about 10 names that I've saved, kept them in the Army in all of these cases because the Army kept screwing up over and over. So it'd be great to see the Army fix this, because we don't want to have to depend on the personality of the President of the United States going forward with the systemic problem we have in the military while we're at war, of bureaucrats and lawyers in the Pentagon deciding when guys go to jail because they're committing acts of valor and courage in combat. Because that's what you have right now, and it's a system problem. It can be fixed by the president, but as soon as you have a different president that doesn't love the military as much, boom, we're right back where we were, where you're having guys getting put in jail for doing their jobs. This needs a system fix where the lawyers get out of the way and the combat-hardened military leaders get to make these decisions.
I couldn't agree more. I do believe that this president needs to be briefed in person with the lawyers there. So this way, you don't leave the room and then the lawyers come in and say, no, you can't do that. That happens every day. All right. Thank you, Duncan Hunter, for what you do. I'm out of time, Captain.
When you show up.
All right, Captain, we got to roll. Thank you. Thank you, Duncan Hunter.
They may have had someone who was talking to them in the campaign, but the focus here, and as it was with the intelligence community, is not on the campaign per se, but what the Russians were doing to try to instantiate themselves in the campaign or to influence or leverage it. So if there was someone that was observing that sort of thing, well, that's a good thing.
Just hear what James Clapper said. Oh, it's a good thing we have spies. Did we have warrants? Did we tell the president? Did you or then candidate Trump? Has this ever happened to any other campaign? Is it normal practice to lie to FISA court judges with opposition party bought and paid for lies the way it happened with Hillary Clinton's bought and paid for dossier? Is this all normal? This is a good thing? Anyway, we have a lot of ground to cover. News Roundup, Information Overload Hour on the Sean Hannity Show. 800-941-SEAN is our number. We have two big pieces that we want to share with you this hour. I mentioned it earlier, Kerry Pickett's piece, where many agents in the FBI, these are the rank and file guys that I go out of my way every day to point out, they're not involved in this. This is not their doing. They shouldn't be, we shouldn't paint with a broad brush, because the 99% of them do a great job for us, including the Intel Committee and the CIA and the FBI. But there are agents, and I think at the end of the day, when we get to the truth, it's only going to be because people within the ranks of the FBI that have stood up and risked their careers and passed on information and told the truth. We're only going to get there because they are helping, and they have been from the beginning, and they'll be the unsung heroes in all of this. So we can hopefully stop these deep state illegal actions in an attempt literally at a coup in the United States. Anyway, many of these agents, they want Congress to subpoena them so that they can reveal the problems that were caused by James Comey and Andrew McCabe. And I'm sure we'd love to hear from the FISA judges as well. And then we now have this all-important timeline, the most comprehensive, put together by Cheryl Atkinson. She's done an amazing job on this, and she's the host of Sinclair Sunday TV. It's a program called Full Measure, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Smear. Carrie Pickett, investigative reporter with the Daily Caller. Welcome both of you to the program. Let's start with you, Carrie Pickett, and this blockbuster that, a lot of rank and file want to tell the truth, but Congress has to subpoena them for that to happen.
That's right, Sean. Very often we hear the term whistleblower, and we also hear many people say, why don't these FBI agents just get protections by our country's whistleblower laws? But the problem really is that they want to step forward, but the whistleblower laws can only go so far as protecting them. These FBI agents say, we would rather be subpoenaed to give our stories because then the Congress will then be able to pay for our legal representation. The whistleblower laws will not be able to do that. After all, these are the guys who have to pay for their mortgages just like everybody else. They have to pay for their kids' college education. And so ultimately, a big issue here as far as they're concerned is that just like everybody else, they want to see the bad apples weeded out of the Bureau. And also keep in mind, they're having big problems in the Bureau when it comes to conviction rates over at the FBI. As of now, like the Time magazine ended up doing an analysis. Last year, it was about a 47% conviction rate over at the Bureau. Across the government agencies, the average conviction rate, anytime government agencies send that over to the Justice Department, they have around a 73% conviction rate. And that is pretty sad if the FBI only has a 47% conviction rate. And that has a lot to do with the credibility over at the FBI. So they're thinking to themselves, it has become too politicized. And we have to start weeding up the bad apples right now if we're going to start getting our credibility back right now.
I couldn't agree with you more. Cheryl, let's go to you. I really appreciated the amount of work you put into your timeline. And what's so important about it is that there was, and we had discussed this early on, and I haven't mentioned it in a long time, how the rules changed in 2011 and what the impact of that was and how it became much more it became much easier to spy on people. Then we have the rate of unmasking American citizens, a 350% increase in 2016 alone. And all of these little bits of information put us in a position where the intelligence community had fewer restrictions on them and the feeling that they were invincible. And I think that led to a lot of what happened in the election and since the election of 2016.
Which begins to smack of a very organized counterintelligence operation, not against Russia, as is claimed, but against the Trump campaign for political reasons. And I just published a piece in The Hill that outlines 8 specific signs that point to this that are, I think, pretty irrefutable. And Carrie's right. There are people inside our intel agencies who would like to talk, but sources of mine, even if they got protection or supposed subpoenas, still wouldn't want to talk because they don't trust Democrats or many Republicans to be able to protect them and pursue the truth, which is very sad.
Well, I think that's it. But let's go back. I want you to go through a little more details of your timeline and, the moments that stuck out the most for you in terms of that sort of set the stage that they had at least more power than they ever had before. And the danger, of course, arises if you have power, you're going to abuse that power. And in fact, it happened.
Well, just like civil libertarians warned after 9/11, when we make changes for all the right reasons to try to make it better so that we can better protect ourselves against terrorism and things like that, there tends to be abuses. And the intel community, especially bad actors, will use that to go too far and maybe swing the pendulum in the wrong direction. But one thing that didn't get a lot of attention that is pretty clear in the timeline is that anti-Russian Ukrainians allegedly helped coordinate and execute a campaign against Trump in partnership with the Democratic National Committee and news reporters. This is laid out very clearly, yet I don't think is the subject of anybody's investigation. That's foreign influence in our election, not to mention the foreign influence of the Yemen-born ex-British spy, Christopher Steele, who we know is integrally involved, and the FBI used him and used his political opposition research. We know about the orchestrated leaks that I've gone through some of those, one right after the other in order, some of them on completely false information, but all of them anti-Trump. So all of them one way or another designed again, in what seems like an orchestrated operation against President Trump. So those are just a few things.
And, as I look over your piece, Kerry Pickett, and based on my own experience, kind of leading, with my chin here, there's been a number of us that have been out in front of this story and getting the crap beat out of us every day, but being proven right every other day. Is that at the heart of all of this is it's all political. And it all seems to start with the desire that Hillary win the Democratic nomination and the belief that she would be the next president. And then the effort to undermine an opposition party candidate and lie to FISA courts in the process with her propaganda.
So true, Sean. What we have here, one particular source of mine who spoke to a special agent in the Washington field office of the FBI and gave to the Daily Caller a transcript of his interview with the special agent. Quote, the administrations are so politicized that any time a special agent comes forward as a whistleblower, they can expect to be thrown under the bus by leadership. Go against the Muslim Brotherhood, you're crushed. Go against the Clintons, you're crushed. The FBI has long been politicized to the detriment of national security and law enforcement. Now, mind you, Sean, back in October of 2016, I spoke to this same source who also spoke to Washington field office FBI agents who said at the time, remember, this is October 2016, this was before Trump was elected, said that Comey stood in the way of the Clinton email investigation. And just 1 month later, then you had Trump elected, and and the common refrain was, oh, well, it was Comey's fault because he reopened the Clinton email investigation. No, according to FBI agents, they were saying, no, Comey was actually sort of helping Clinton in a way. So it'll be very interesting to see when the IG report comes out, how exactly was Comey essentially blocking the Clinton email investigation in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. How high, Cheryl Atkinson, as you look at this, can you explain again in a little more detail? We're not paying attention to the Ukrainian efforts to influence our election. And by the way, people are surprised about this. That's ridiculous, too, because in 2014, I know that Devin Nunes wrote in the Washington Times very explicitly warning everybody that Russia had their sights set on influencing and creating some type of havoc and chaos in the American elections. And it's happened in Europe a lot, and it's happened to us before. So it won't be the last effort on their part. And then, of course, just weeks before the election, Obama saying no serious person ever believes the United States of America could ever blah, blah, ever be our elections could ever be hacked by anybody, and telling Trump to stop whining. So this isn't new, but go back to the Ukrainian part.
Well, and I'd like to mention that if they were conducting an investigation into Russia interference in the election at the same time the president was telling people it was not possible, and then were utterly incapable of stopping it once they've begun an investigation, that all just points to, severe incompetence. But I don't think that was the case. I think it was a political operation. But for the Russians, this was detailed in a Politico article I found in early 2017 that really didn't get a lot of attention. But with specificity and with interviews of the actual people involved, there were details such as a Democratic operative, a Ukrainian-American woman named Alexandra Chalupa, briefed the Democratic National Committee early on, this is in March of 2016, on Russia ties to Manafort and Trump, and with the DNC's encouragement, went to the Ukrainian embassy to try to arrange a meeting with Ukrainian's president to discuss Manafort and his lobbying. I mean, Manafort was an enemy of the pro-Ukraine interest because Manafort was tied to this Trump associate, was tied to the Russia interest in Ukraine. So this may be a political fight that was playing out more than anything else. The Ukrainian embassy officials and the Democratic operative Chalupa, according to this report Politico, coordinated an investigation with the Hillary team into Paul Manafort, which included reaching out to media organizations and media people who wrote articles on all of this, such as Michael Isikoff. So a direct line can be drawn between Ukrainian officials, the Democratic National Committee, these operatives, and the media in all of this.
Just think, everyone's so against the influencing of elections. Everyone seems to forget that Barack Obama even used some taxpayer money in an effort to undermine now current prime minister, but in his re-election, the prime minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and we've chronicled that story well. What I think is so absolutely amazing in all of this, indicative of all of this, you look at every indictment we have here. The 13 Russian bot companies. Well, they never thought they were going to fight back. And look what happened. They indicted a company that didn't exist at the time. I mean, a total screw up. And I guarantee you they're going to have to, because of discovery, they're probably going to dismiss those indictments. Paul Manafort, as Judge Ellis said, that the only reason they went back to a 2005 to 2007 tax fraud issue was because they want to put the screws to Manafort to make him sing so that he'll give information, maybe compose information that would allow for the prosecution or then impeachment of Donald Trump. Judge Ellis was right in that case. Or look in the case of General Flynn. And General Flynn, we now know, neither Strzok nor Comey or anybody thought he was lying to the FBI. They didn't believe it. And they tried to hide that information in the name of national security, redacting it originally. And the unredacted version shows something different, that the FBI never thought that General Flynn ever lied. Not once. We'll take a break. We'll come back more with Cheryl Atkinson and Kerry Pickett. All right, as we continue. She is the host of the TV program on Sinclair on Sunday. It's called Full Measure. Author of the bestseller The Smear. Kerry Pickett, investigative reporter with the Daily Caller. Back to you, Kerry Pickett. What percentage of agents that you are talking to are disgusted by the actions of their superiors as part of your story today? Because everybody I know in the FBI, they are the most angry of anyone.
Well, Sean, I can't give you an exact number. What I can tell you, though, is, like I mentioned before, there's just a real concern of just getting back to business because right now they feel like they just simply cannot do what they need to do, which is basically prosecuting criminals and also mainly getting on with their investigations without being scrutinized in some political fashion. Now, keep in mind, one of the things that for example, that one of my sources mentioned to me, he said that one of the FBI field agents that he speaks to frequently, he says that he doesn't even want to put his FBI field jacket on or anything that identifies him as an FBI agent, simply because he's almost ashamed. It's one of those things where the morale in the Bureau is just completely down. So it's just an issue of credibility right now. So as far as numbers, that's a little bit tough to peg. But as far as morale is concerned, morale just needs to really get upped, and that just is an issue of just bringing back the credibility back to the Bureau.
All right, last word, Cheryl Atkinson.
I think that what's coming out is an overarching pattern that you don't even have to parse too finely to see that there were political motivations here. And this is indicative of a broad pattern within government of missing documents, of documents requested by Congress that we own that are turned over improperly redacted, of misbehavior of all kinds by certain government actors, a culture that exists that they were very fearful Trump would come in and ruffle and discover perhaps crimes, in my view, that have been committed.
Unbelievable. And, if Hillary won, we wouldn't know any of this. It would all have been covered up. And that was that was their miscalculation in all of this. They never thought Trump could win. Great work. We really appreciate it. Cheryl Atkinson, Kerry Pickett, thank you for being with us. Those are the last thing. Sarah, Jay, David Schoen, Byron York, Peter Schweitzer, Tom Fitton, Sidney Powell, Greg Jarrett. Now more and more people are being added. 800-941-SEAN, our toll-free telephone number. We're going to take a little break from this. I mean, I'm literally sweating today covering this so hard. When we get back, my buddy, we're going to check in with Charlie Daniels and much more straight ahead.
The devil went down to Georgia.
Yeah, he was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind, so he was willing to make a deal. When he came upon this young man sawing on a fiddle and playing it hot, well, the devil jumped up on a hickory stump. He said, "Boy, let me tell you what. I guess you didn't know it, but I'm a fiddle player too. And if you care to take a dare, I'll make a bet with you." Whoops. And you play pretty good fiddle, boy, but give the devil his due. I'll bet a fiddle of gold against your soul because I think I'm better than you. The boy said, "My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet. You're going to regret because I'm the best as ever been."
Johnny, rosin up your bow and play your fiddle hard, cause hell's broke loose in Georgia and the devil deals the cards. And if you win, you get this shiny fiddle made of gold, but if you lose, the devil gets your soul.
All right, that can only mean one thing when we're playing The Devil Went Down to Georgia. That means our buddy Charlie Daniels is back. And along with him is Bob Regan, is the founder of this group called Operation Song, a nonprofit group that empowers vets and active duty military to share their stories through songwriting. And we're also going to be joined in a minute by Sean Niket, an Iraq War veteran. He co-wrote the song. We played it on the air before. That's called West Point to Arlington in memory of his Special Forces captain. We'll play it in a few minutes, but let me welcome Mr. Daniels. Sir, I know every time I start doing your song, you laugh. I know you're making fun of me.
You still remember the words. I am impressed.
What do you mean I still remember the words? They're etched into my memory.
I had a great time when we did that on the Freedom Tour.
Oh man, it was so fun for me.
You look like Garth Brooks jumping around on the stage, man. I was afraid you're gonna fall off a drum riser or something.
Yeah, it was bound to happen. If I stayed on tour with you, you probably were gonna lose all your fans. People would say you're ruining the best song we're all waiting for.
People you would not believe what a charge people got out of it, man. They loved it.
It was so fun. And listen, I know how many times you've been over, doing USO tours and seeing, our military guys. You have devoted so much of your personal time and your band's time.
I've been doing it for a lot of years. Of course, I went to Iraq 3 times, but I've been to Guantanamo. I've been to Greenland. I've been to Kosovo and Bosnia, and I don't know, just wherever our guys and gals are at. We've tried to get there, especially in my younger years. We tried to get there.
What do you mean in your younger years? You're only 30 years old.
You're very kind, but you're also about 51 years.
I hear you every weekend on Y2 Country. They're playing you all the time.
Well, that's good, man. I'm glad to know somebody's playing my records.
Of course they're playing your records. Or, you got the Zach Brown Band giving you a run for your money on The Devil.
Well, that's true. They do a great job on that. I've heard them do that.
Is that a compliment to a songwriter? And obviously you're an icon in the country music industry, and somebody is successful and really talented as Zach Brown comes along and he wants to play your song. Is that a compliment to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely is. I love hearing people do our stuff. I like to hear other people do it, see how they perceive it to be. But yeah, absolutely. And Sean, they do such a great job of it. Zach Brown does. They're just. I've heard all kinds of people have written parodies of the song. The best parody I ever heard was a song about the English-Scottish soccer game called Big Willie Went Down to Wembley. And then the refrain went, "Fights on the terrace, run, boys, run."
That's amazing. I want to welcome your buddy Bob Regan here, Operation Song. A great idea, brilliant actually, a Nashville-based nonprofit that empowers vets, active military, sharing their stories through songwriting. Look, I wish I had the talent of a songwriter because I got a lot to say, obviously, Bob, but I'm not sure that, Hannity singing about the deep state, James Comey, Rod Rosenstein would fly.
Well, we can work on that. You don't need to be able
maybe
to
water. You'll get together.
You just need to be able to.
Yeah, we'll call it Muddy Swamp Waters. We'll call it Deep State Waters.
You'll get together and write him a song, Bob.
Yeah.
We can do it. I've written a song with just about every. Anyway, this is Bob, and I thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing for the troop. Look, Memorial Day is this weekend, and I know for most of us that means family, friends, barbecue, golf, fishing, whatever you like to do. But one of the vets that wrote one of these songs is Sean Niket is his name. He's an Iraq War vet, and he co-wrote this song. We played it on the show before, West Point to Arlington, in memory of his friend, Special Forces Captain Andrew Patterson Keel. He lost his life serving in Afghanistan in March of 2013. Anyway, so I want to feature this song, and I just think as you go through your weekend, just take a moment, you reflect about all those that literally gave their lives so we can have the best life possible on this earth and live in freedom and fun like we do in America. Just that became an amazing hit song. Now, in order, and again to honor Memorial Day, there's a new song. It's called The Last Monday in May. And what's amazing about this is it conveys the meaning of Memorial Day and the voices of fallen soldiers from the past 150 years. And it's just so well done. The vocalists are Ward Davis and Jimmy Ray Sells, a Vietnam vet, Navy Special Ops, and Ian Wagner, Iraq, Afghanistan vet, and combat medic, and Purple Heart recipient. And anyway, they performed this song on the National Mall for the past 4 Memorial Days. They're going back this month. Here, listen. They're going to be singing that and featuring that coming up this weekend. I mean, these are all vets that put this together, and they perform this song at the National Mall now for the past 4 Memorial Days. You know, Sean, first let's start with you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, those songs just get me every time. I think this is such a great a great opportunity and at catharsis for all these men and women that go fight for us, and they come back and they have to deal with PTSD and all sorts of difficulties reacclimating themselves to a regular life, and those that don't come back. It's such an honor that you guys do this for them.
Yes. Thank you, Sean, for having me on. But I'd like to say a couple of words about Andrew, if you don't mind. We met at West Point when I first entered, really, and he was a mentor and a friend. And he knew the dangers he was facing, but went anyway. There's no better definition of a hero than that. But beyond that, the way he lived his life was one in which he was touching others' lives, obviously, constantly. And so that's what really motivated me to write the song. I had a hard time dealing with the loss of a mentor. And so, yes, it did help me sort of process that, but I also wanted family and friends of Andrew to know that he had an impact far beyond his own personal service in the military as well.
What a great honor to your friend. Charlie, I've known you forever, and I know you give your heart and your soul, especially you got such a big part of your heart invested in freedom in this country and honoring those that serve this country. There's certain songs when you're singing, and especially some of your patriotic songs, and you have a library full of them, amazing ones. When you're actually on stage, it gets to you. Has that ever happened?
Yes, it has. I have had songs that get to me. I get nobody knows it basically, but I have gotten teary-eyed on stage before. I feel very strongly about this country as you do, Sean. I don't know a bigger patriot than you. You're a great American and a wonderful patriot. But there's a lot of us out here that feel the same way, and that nobody any more so than the ones who've laid their lives on the line to go and fight for us. We can never, ever do enough for them.
No, and right. And we don't do enough for them. We don't.
Definitely get teary-eyed on stage sometime. I have done it on one occasion. Absolutely.
All right, so Bob and then Sean, tell us, if people want to be a part of this, what they can do to help you.
First thing, go to our website, operationsong.org, and you go to the landing page. There's a wonderful video of this song, and just learn a little more about Operation Song. We're on Facebook. We're on all social media. Just look for Operation Song on YouTube or SoundCloud. We've written over 600 songs at this point with veterans of World War II. Last weekend, we were at a retreat with 20 Gold Star kids, and this idea just kind of took off, and I had a wonderful career as a professional songwriter, and I just kind of started doing this 6 years ago to see if it would work, and it definitely works. And I don't take any money for this. This is my retirement gig. But anyway, please just go look into Operation Song. We've got so many wonderful songs on the YouTube channel. We encourage the veterans to make videos. There's a wonderful video of West Point to Arlington, which tells the story of Andrew on there. I'll just say, go check us out on the web, and it's a real honor for me and all the songwriters that write with these veterans, the men and the women. They say, come back to me and they say, that was probably my best day ever as a songwriter. I wrote a song that really meant something.
Well, I appreciate all that you do, and Sean, God bless you, and continued best to you and your family, and also the family of your friend, Special Forces Captain Andrew Peterson Keel, who lost his life in Afghanistan. And Bob, thanks for what you're doing. Charlie, love you. You're family to me, and we appreciate all you do always.
Thank you so much for having us. OperationSong.org.
All right, appreciate it.